Hello, everybody. Russell Hill, your humble host on WTF today. And that's what the FixedOPS to you.
I'm the co-host here, and today we have a very special guest. We have Sarah Vantine from Quantum5, the VP of Sales. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Welcome, yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Our first question for you is, you went from a sales consultant to a marketing coordinator to a BDC manager to the VP of Sales. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey of climbing the corporate ladder?
Sure. So, in 2009, I started off selling cars, and I will be completely transparent. Part of that whole story is I was not looking for a job in the car business. It was really an interesting, revelation to get to the point where I started working in the industry. But, I have 2 degrees. I have 2 bachelors in art history and studio art. And my intention was to get into antiquities and actually to do field research overseas and do, a lot of different museum curation, that kind of work. And the reality was, in 2008, everything changed. And so as I approached my graduation from college, I was having the career center, and my professors all tell me, the unpaid internships that we talked about, well, people with PhDs are getting them. So that's how they're getting their foot in the door. And with you, 2 bachelor's degrees, nobody in the collegiate field is going to take a look at you. So I really was not, I was fortunate. I graduated with no debt. So I was really trying to keep that same exact approach, which was, all right, so you're telling me someone with a PhD is winding up doing unpaid internships. I think I'm going to switch gears and maybe explore something else. So I actually took a stack of resumes, got in my car, and just hit the road. Was driving in Charleston, South Carolina, happened to see a store that had a "we're hiring" out front, and just pulled right in. And that is really the starting point of my automotive career. So I went in and interviewed on the spot. The interview was a little rocky, to say the least. But that was the start. And so from there, I started selling cars and really just fell in love with the business overall. There was a lot of pieces that I felt really challenged. And I also really enjoyed working with a variety of people. I loved my customers. I loved having that relationship and then being able to build value in whatever it was that they were looking for, and then being the person that they would routinely come back and see. And so as I kept adding more and more skills, with selling, I was given more opportunities for promotion. And so I've worked in a variety of different roles in the dealership, but about a year ago, I joined Quantum5. So I left the retail side of the business, and that was my stepping stone into the other side. And that has been such an amazing opportunity, because I've gone from being able to help just a small group of stores and specific organizations to now I can help hundreds of organizations. And that has just been so much more empowering to be able to have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I was sitting here thinking when you were saying the impromptu interviews, like, what the heck did I get myself into here type thing. So I know a little bit about you. So I think it was about 2 years ago, I had a presentation because of the relationship I had with Chris Cady at Scott Clark Honda Nissan Toyota. And you were on that meeting. And I didn't know really anything about you. David Blackburn, he's the guy, he loves the heck out of us. But at first, and he said it because we got an endorsement, a video endorsement from him. He was talking about, he was out, he didn't want any part of it. He was doing it at Chris, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember you asking some questions. I learned real quick what I thought, and I think it plays into where you're at now, the caliber of person you are, with a family person, You love horses. You got an equestrian background. Your the level of character and integrity, but how you deal with people, and you ask the right questions. And I think that I not that I do, because I like to pride myself. If I don't know, I don't know. But you better tell it like it is, because you've already done some research or you know something like that. And then another conversation I had, which I thought was real interesting. You correct me if I'm wrong here, but you had been offered over the years many different opportunities that to go to work with a vendor, et cetera, but you chose Quantum5. And, you know, it was probably a hard thing because you had a family there with the Scott Clark stores. But what was it on this particular opportunity that was different from all the rest? Because a lot of people, if I understand, came after you or sought you out.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to tell you about a workshop we're holding at NADA 2023. We're covering how EV adoption rates will impact fixed operations in the future. We'll show you real and meaningful data that might just put you at ease. Or maybe not. You'll have to come see. Come join us at our workshop, How Electric Vehicles Will Change Fixed Operations. We'll see you there.
Yes, no, that's very spot on. And I will say, you know, in 2018, I was very fortunate with Automotive News. I was recognized for 40 under 40 for the work that I had done with the Scott Clark Auto Group. And really, Chris Cady gave me that opportunity to build a BDC in the way that I knew would be successful, and having the ability to scale that kind of operation with such an amazing group of people and really see the vision all the way through, so our customers would be happier. And then of course we had better service experience, better ROI on our repair orders. It was just a perfect storm of people enabling that success. But after that, you know, I was approached with lots of different opportunities from different places. Some of them were on the vendor partner side. Some of them were other dealership groups.
Sure.
And really, you know, for me, that is something that is a challenge. You know, I am very loyal and I'm very dedicated to whatever it is I put my heart into. And I really, when talking to Quantum5 and when David O'Brien and I connected a little over a year ago, what happened then was really the transformation of where I am today. And so what was different about Quantum5? Well, for me, it was the way that our company scales and structures learning, and specifically how they structure it for the dealership. So, you know, there's lots of training companies in automotive. There's lots of different methodologies and training platforms and coaches in our space. But for me, the biggest difference was what I saw from the scalability and the technology married to the benefit of the learner and the person, and how they enhance their skills. That's always been something that I've been personally very passionate about as it pertains to my own teams. Over the years, I was very much the person that when I built the BDC, I wanted my people to see the automotive industry not as just a job, but as a career opportunity. And so taking whatever they wanted for their family, for their livelihood, I wanted to enhance and give them every, you know, equipable skill to get to whatever that goal was in the end. And Quantum5 does that through the way that we have our in-person and our technology learning. That same mission that was so critical to me as a person and what I value and how I've gone about learning and how I've trained people over the years in automotive, it just really resonated with me what the company was doing. And so I ultimately decided to make that change. And, you know, I'm happy to say that the Scott Clark Group is still one of our clients. So that shows that there's no hard feelings there. You know, they're excited for me to take that next step in my journey. And I'm still able to continue to help their stores and still able to continue to support them.
Although unfortunate that Chris was probably sad that you did, I know Chris to be this kind of guy, would never, particularly an opportunity for growth like that, and to follow along a line of passion that you had in working with people, that to put any kind of guilt trip on you, he wasn't that kind of guy. It was, wishing you all the best and success, et cetera, and so on. But if it doesn't work out, you're always free to come back, right?
That's
Yeah.
job security.
So I was thinking while you were talking, I've known Dave for a long time, and we're talking a quality guy. And I'm involved in a lot of, live shows, regarding fixed operations more than sales. Clubhouse. I like to stay engaged and on top and here. But in the end, it all boils down to Lee Iacocca has said it best back in the 80s when he was turning Chrysler around. That in the end, ladies and gentlemen, you can sum all businesses up to three things, and that's product, profits, and people. And the most important of which are you people. And I think that's the strong suit. Quantum itself is like a leap above the trainers and all the things that you're talking about. They come in, they train, and then they leave. There's nothing lasting. It takes a lot more. But in the end, even the stuff that I'm blessed with, or Charity and I are blessed with, like coming up with the NADA, I know you guys, and also Digital Dealer as well. Everything we talk about still is a journey. You get right to the end. It's all about people. It's all about people, and people here's what they want. They want to know they count, they matter, they make a difference. They're a part of a team and something bigger than just them, and everybody working for the same common goal while addressing flexibilities in schedule, et cetera. Did I read that right about Quantum5?
Yes. So, and just to expand on that a little bit more,
Please.
Really, the biggest piece for Quantum5 is we want to enable people in automotive to impact their organizations with not only people skills, with how they interact, how they build value for their customers, how they build that relationship, but we also want to equip them with the skills in the digital space to have that omni-channel communication, to be able to filter between different processes and different platforms, and be able to meet the customer where they are in their journey. And for us, it's really enabling not just the employees, but also for the management, for the leaders in the organizations, to be able to build that value as a culture. And so
Sure.
In May, we acquired ESI Trends, which is now ESIQ, but they've been a leader in automotive, specifically looking at net promoter scores for dealerships, looking at employee satisfaction, looking at that key KPIs of why people are leaving the industry and what challenges they're facing at the dealership. We can take all of that data and the stores data, the regular things that you look at, like number of sales,
Sure.
Incoming phone calls, appointments, all of those KPIs, we're able to take it and digest it and get a really true picture of what's going on under the hood at a car dealership, and then be able to give the leaders in that organization the ability to go after the things that they want to target. So whatever the opportunities are for that organization that present themselves, but then also continue to build on the things that they're doing right. And I think that's what's so important in training today is training can't be just a solution to fix problems. It has to be to keep elevating your people. And even if you have high performing people, to keep them going where they can see and feel that growth.
Yes. That's phenomenal.
So can you give us a real world example of how you do something like that?
Yeah. So, let me just talk about some of the stuff we've been doing at some different organizations. I can talk about Scott Clark as well. So, that was already a really high performing store.
It was.
But we've come in with Elizabeth Martin and with David Blackburn and the teams there. And really for BDC, one of the challenges that they were facing most recently was conversion as it pertained to outbound phone calls. So one of the challenges that they wanted to look at was, okay, we're calling these customers. This is already, again, a super high performing BDC. They were already doing a phenomenal job, but they wanted to raise the bar even more. And so the challenge was, how can we get the staff that's already engaging in these outbound campaigns to get people in, to remind them for upcoming service, to call them about parts that have come in? How do we come up with strategies where we can be the most effective with the people and the resources that we have?
Sure.
How do we align all of these different facets of communication together so the customer doesn't get a fragmented experience? And that's a real challenge for a lot of dealers, because oftentimes we do, as dealerships go, have a lot of different avenues for communicating or marketing to a customer. And sometimes the customer gets lost in all the communication that's happening. But what we did with Scott Clark, so outbound specifically, they wanted to target and improve. So we implemented some changes with, number one, training the team. So we went in, we had in-person learning. We were working with the individual reps. We were listening to phone calls. We were doing one-on-one coaching. We deployed our app, which enabled, and we've been tracking the production as reps go through different journeys that pertain to those skills with communicating with customers. We've been tracking their progress, looking at the different data points alongside their learning journey, so we can match up where some of the skill deficits are with the learning that they continue to receive ongoing from the community.
Sure.
But then really what has been so cool to see is they went from like a 7% overall conversion. That in just a year's time has gone up overall to over 18%. So
That's
really
that's
cool.
substantial. Yeah. So the coaching you were talking about, is it group and one-on-one, or is it just one-on-one for the different personality types, et cetera? I mean, there's not, is it different for different individuals, your methodology? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what makes it so exciting, right? And that's what I'm so passionate about. Like the pieces in training, typically what happens in automotive typically is it's a one size fits all approach. So here we all are in a classroom together. We're all different skill levels. If you want to think about gaming, you know, we all have our different skills and capabilities as it pertains to let's say it's the BDC, for example, or maybe let's go with a different department. So like the sales department, maybe each salesperson has a different bandwidth of skill. Someone might be better at, negotiating or closing. Someone else might be better at the presentation and building value. Well, what we can do at an individual, in the individual learning, is really look at the skill gaps that someone has specific to how they go about the sales process. And we can serve specific journeys and that individual coaching where we're meeting the person where they are in their skill journey. And then for us, it's not punitive. So we're not looking at these assessments or this data and going, okay, Russ, well, it looks like you're not very good at building value. So we're going to report this back to your manager. And now
thank you.
Have a conversation, and they're going to, penalize you for not going through or knowing the information. That's not what we're about. We're about building that individual. And it's like, look, wherever you are, let's just keep raising the bar and keep tracking that over time. Let's then compare it to the data at large. So like what you were talking about, looking at the whole store's data, looking at the whole department as an aggregate. And then for us, we look at it and go, are we seeing progression with what the dealer wants to achieve? Because for us, we're a company that wants to show a dealership that training has an ROI. And for us, we're that committed to it that we say, if we're not building that ROI for you, then we definitely don't earn the right to earn your business. We have to meet you where you are and improve the skills with what your targets are.
After you go in and you look at all this data and you do what you do, I think one of the differentiators that I see is that something happens after you leave too, right? You don't just leave and that's it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So right after, we onboard all of our learners into our Quantum5 app at the end of our in-person learning. But from there, that's not the end. We have a whole dedicated community team, which we have some of the best in automotive. All of the people that coach and that work with the individual learners all have sat in the same seats and in the same shoes as our learners.
Absolutely.
And so really they get that benefit of being able to learn at their pace, go through different types of learning and engagement. They get to go about it at a pace that works for them and also based on the content that interests them. But then they also get that one-on-one support. So it's really cool to see what our community team does when we've built that trust with the individual learner. So our community team is constantly live chatting, having phone calls,
Oh, that's great.
role plays, having that one-on-one dialogue with the individual learners. So really what we are is a force multiplier for like the sales management team or the service management team. We're not replacing them, but we're adding that force multiplier to be able to work with the individuals one-on-one based on what the manager's goal or the store's goals are. But we build that trust and credibility because we're also working with the individual learner in a way that doesn't seem confrontational and they don't feel like is punitive. And so they open up and they're receptive to, wow, okay, Quantum is really there to help me. They're not somebody that's going to go run and tell my manager that I am terrible at a walk around or that I'm not doing so great at tire sales.
Right.
I'm actually able to build that trust with them and be vulnerable and have those really tough conversations that are like, hey, Russ, you know, I had 5 tire presentations today and I didn't sell a single one. I don't know what I did, but can we go through it together real quick and like talk about it? And they have that person as an advocate that's in their corner that can then help the learner and say, hey, you know what, Russ, I understand. Like, let's role play what happened. You know what? Let me also do this. I have these other journeys. I'm going to send you some additional journeys that you can go through that specifically have content
that's great,
you know, based on your needs. And we are able to scale too. So our content library, it's not stagnant. We're constantly adding thousands of pieces of content every 90 days. And so everything that's going on, we're getting feedback from our learners that are telling us the challenges that they're facing real time today. And our art and our team is able to build scenarios around the real challenges that people are facing in digital retail.
That's great. I think the name and I've met a lot of the I've met a lot of people with Quantum5, and it's like, in my opinion, it's like the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, the top of the top. But you are all such personable, people-oriented, edifying, lifting up, encouraging. And of course, you got accountability on top of that. But it's almost like people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care, right? Yes. So like you mentioned on the person with the selling tires 5 times and didn't get anywhere, to feel comfortable enough to reach out to the coach or whatever and say, hey, this is what happened. That's not normal from what I see in automotive. I've been in automotive a long time. I don't see that. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's spot on. And honestly, you know, I think about when going in the industry, being on the retail side for 14 years, I can remember so many different times where I've been in training courses, either with the OEM or with an individual trainer, where sometimes I felt like I can't engage in this because I don't want this to get back to my manager that I asked a question that then they're like, what is this chick doing? What is she asking this question about? And so like, right, in training in automotive, sometimes there is that hesitation to be vulnerable for a lot of people because it challenges them to grow. And if they don't feel comfortable with the learning environment, if they don't have that trust with the trainer or with the training company, they can be a little more guarded and hesitant to open up. But for us, that's really who we are as people. We're people in automotive that have come from the retail side, and all of us in Quantum5 have valued so much that one-on-one personal relationship where you can continue to grow and continue to ask questions and continue to grow your skills. We've all had that passion and that fire to be able to help our teams. And so being able to have it in a scalable, but then also super cost-effective way to impact dealers has been it's been amazing to see the transformation for individuals and with stores.
That's great.
Yeah, that is great. So we looked you up a little bit, Sarah, before this interview, and you know,
oh, no.
we stalked you, we gleaned you,
No, but we noticed that you are really you really encourage honoring people and pushing people around you to be their best version of themselves. So how do you think that you practice what you preach in your everyday career as far as doing the same thing?
Good question.
Yeah. So, I also hold myself accountable to that same standard as far as, I seek people that I can find growth And so, David O'Brien, our company's founder, one of the biggest conversations having with him is I felt like when I joined Quantum, that I could see a lot of personal growth in myself that would be scalable, for the rest of however long my career goes.
Right.
And so for me, I've always been very empowering of my teams. I've always encouraged people, regardless of what their interests are, and that could be personally or professionally. I want to enable whatever I can with the skills that I have for them to see that kind of growth. For me, on the personal side, being an equestrian and having getting back into the sport as an adult has been really challenging in a lot of different ways. It's challenged me not only mentally, but it's challenged me physically, emotionally, the whole gambit. But then just having, again, another outlet where I have people and individuals that help coach me and help improve my thinking, help improve how I go about writing. And that's helped me in so many ways in business as well. And so I do oftentimes apply some of the lessons and the coaching that I learn in the equestrian space into the car business.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I sometimes I can get down into the weeds on stuff, but I really believe, you keep stepping out, you're talking, and getting out, you want to know more, and you want other people to come along with you. And they don't always do that. Right. Unfortunately. But I believe that right now in this moment, which has been phenomenal for me, that I'm a sum total of everything I've ever seen, heard, read, and done. We've all heard the definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. Sometimes people don't get it, and that's okay. I love them where they're at and move on down the road. But it's almost like if you want something different tomorrow, first, there's only what you read, okay? What you listen to and who you associate with, right? I mean, those things are critical. So if you want new output, you're going to have some kind of new input, and you can't wait for the right time. Well, next month after this happens, I'll start that, right? We've all been guilty of that stuff. But I'm curious with your, trying to think of the right word, with the person you are, where did that come from? Have you always been that, like from a little girl up, or did you have a defining moment in your life where, hey, this isn't working, I got to do something different, etc.?
Yeah, I would say that it probably comes from a combination of things. I've had a lot of really amazing role models throughout my life. One of the things that I've witnessed with just the different mentors and with the different people that I've had has been that unwavering commitment to leaving whatever it is that they do better than when they found it. I think probably two of the most pivotal pieces in my automotive career specifically. So, I mean, going back prior to automotive, I would definitely credit my parents with that. My parents definitely have always had the very kind of hard childhood where it's like, there are no excuses. Now you're gonna screw up, and you're absolutely, there's definitely been, I was very stubborn, and that's probably putting it lightly as a child. So sometimes with my parents, it was kind of like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object scenario. But but them challenging me like that and giving me some, the accountability where when I did screw up, I had to eat it and I had to own it. And
consequences, absolutely.
There were consequences for it. That definitely shaped a lot of components later on. So, I mean, when I got in the automotive industry, it was first really challenging. I didn't have a nice, warm welcome when I first took my first sales job. And it was very, very challenging, but it was definitely my parents and some of the mentors I had in my childhood, like my grandparents, some of my teachers, that instilled that, you can't let outside things interfere with what you want to accomplish. That's really what lit that fire in me to continue to persevere. And I'll say that, after some time in automotive too, I think I had a little bit of a stall in my career after I had left my first dealership group that I was with and moved to a different one. at that point, I was still feeling a little bit lost. I was about 24 years old at the time. And it was, I was kind of wrestling with okay, I had a degree and I was working on these things in college and that didn't pan out. I went a completely different direction, but really, what do I want to do with my life? And so I had a mentor, her name was Jill McCullough, and she's still a very close friend of mine, but she was one of these women in automotive that really set that model for me and the rest of my career. So she just had this absolute fire in her that was, again, like, she challenged me. She would give me projects and give me things that were completely outside of my scope of knowledge. And she would challenge me to keep growing. And even sometimes, like, I would come up with some completely out of the box, weird things that she would be like, you know what, do it. Let's go. Let's see how it pans out. And, I would find successes in that. And I would also find some opportunities that didn't go quite as planned. And she was definitely the mentor that was never like, hey, you know what, that didn't work, but what did we learn from it? Cool. Let's go on to the next one and keep going. And so she instilled that to me at a very impressionable point in my career, that really I took that mentorship, how she crafted me, and that has really been the defining point.
No, that's thank you for sharing. That's very powerful stuff. When you get way outside your comfort zone, it can get pretty scary because of the unknown out there. And of course, if you're responsible, obviously you make a wrong choice, because we're always making choices. There's consequences for those choices. And of course, there's always a great opportunity to learn from it. Sometimes what might appear to be something really uncomfortable and you wish you hadn't done propels you into something that you couldn't have had unless you did, et cetera. And now you're vice president of Quantum5, so a lot of women look to you. A lot of women look to Charity as chief marketing officer in a technology. I mean, it's like those are big shoes, not just being that title, but being a woman. And we really do promote more and more women getting into this business. Back when you first got in, it may have been really uncomfortable. And that I wanted to ask you about this. I know you're obviously, you have a few children and you're married, and that's an important part of your foundation too. How did you meet your husband, and tell us about your kids?
Yes. Yeah, so, it's funny. I met my husband actually in the car business.
Oh no.
And that's actually a really funny story. So my first store that I worked with, at first got in the car business. He worked there as well. And now we had a brief period of time where, so he was a sales manager, I was a sales consultant, but he left really shortly after I arrived at that store. So he had an opportunity to go to Atlanta at a dealership. And so he left, and I continued to plug along working at, the store I was at. Well, I'm from Atlanta originally. And so I told him, I'm like, hey, I go to Atlanta quite a bit. I've got friends. Obviously, my family's from there. You're new. You don't have anybody in town. I'd love to connect. I could take you around some places, introduce you to some people. Totally not expecting any kind of relationship. And he very much was the person that was very resistant to that, because he didn't like the optics of, oh my God, I'm dating somebody in the car business, like, that used to work at my store. So he was very much like, like platonic. And I was the same way. I was like, all right, I'm cool with that too. But over time, we just kept having so much in common. It was like, for him, I felt like he was not only my best friend, but it felt like we were old souls. It was like, okay. We really, there was a lot where it was like, I knew you in another life or something. I got
that. I do. I can identify with that.
But that's how it started. And so, from there, so actually he still works for the Scott Clark Auto Group.
All right.
Even after we, we dated and got engaged, we wound up back at the same organization. And then of course, like his family's from Charlotte, North Carolina. So he wanted to get an opportunity closer to his family. So he moved to the Scott Clark Auto Group, probably in 2011, 2012.
He's been there a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So he started there, and then I followed suit. He had talked to Chris actually at the time and said, hey, my wife, I don't know if you're looking for somebody, but she's pretty established in Hendrick. She's working at several stores in the Chapel Hill market, but this might be a great addition. So that's how the conversation started with Chris. And yeah, so the rest is history. We have 3 kids total. We have my oldest Taylor and my middle Charlotte, and then Richard is my little guy he's almost 2. He'll be 2 in November.
So a lot of juggling. So I'm sorry, I cut you off, Cherry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said very sweet, which is, I have a 1-year-old, so that's just a wonderful age.
And I got to tell you, for almost a little over a year, almost a year and a half, I never even met Charity, except online like this, because she lives in Portland. I live in the Dallas area. We got people all over the country, and here all of us are, and it's like Nico, her youngest, is like part of the podcast, particularly because, sometimes he just doesn't want to sleep or he gets ornery. And it's like, now you have a family of 3 and you live there, but Quantum5 is located here. This whole thing that we're doing has revolutionized everything in the last couple of years. And I think, Cherry, you had a question on something like that.
I do.
Oh.
Did you find it?
No, I didn't. I want,
Well, it's a pretty simple one, and Russell alluded to it. It's, we've all been through a roller coaster the last few years. It's been quite the journey. Do you think you learned anything in particular living through a pandemic and watching it, how it affected the automotive industry?
Yeah, I would say, I think there was a lot of fear, I think, during that time. And there was also, a lot of uncertainty. That's putting it probably mildly. As a parent, there was definitely some challenges when it came time when, North Carolina was a very restrictive state. So my oldest daughter, she was, really in school at that point, and they completely shut down and said, all right, nope, it's virtual. And that was really something that I had to take inventory of, because I was worried about a lot of my team at the time. We were all working together in a call center environment. So we were all kind of shoulder to shoulder, which was obviously not ideal.
Right.
So there were a lot of challenges there where we had to talk about it and go, okay, so we have a lot of different people that have children that are facing these challenges. We have a lot of customers that are starting to become really concerned about, how do I manage servicing my car? How do I even get my car to you during this? And there was a lot of out of the box thinking that had to happen. So I think, the positive from all of the uncertainty, all of the challenges and the fear, I think we've realized as an industry and as people how resilient we are. There's a lot of ability that we've kind of taken in the last couple of years, where we've had to adapt a lot of different components of our business, and also with how we support our people. Mm-hmm. And, I felt very blessed with Scott Clark, again, being a progressive organization, that Chris allowed me that flexibility and understood. And he said, however we need to structure business and get it handled, I completely trust you and your decisions to.
Sounds just like Chris too.
Yep. And so he really facilitated that, being able to do that for my team as well, be able to make those business decisions that were really, going to be, flexible and empowering for my employees to be able to take care of their families and be able to handle their fears and some of the pieces that the challenges that they were facing. But then, in terms of how I helped the business and continued to push, the envelope and continue to adapt during that time, he enabled me to really just figure out solutions. And, David Blackburn, again, too, I have to credit him, service director. He's always been a very progressive thinker and somebody that's very, very supportive of people in automotive. And he has that same passion with his team. And we adapted a lot of different things together. It was that combination of working, BDC, service, the whole entire dealership. We had to have that synergy and that ability to work together and think outside the box. So I think that's, I mean, for me personally, taking, 2 years later outside of COVID, it's really been something that I've witnessed a lot of the industry changing, having that flexibility, having that, that understanding that people are just doing business differently. Their values and the things that they know are important to them, they've changed alongside what they look for in their next jobs. They've changed how they go about their work days.
And we are an extremely resilient bunch of men and women out there in automotive, and we learn how to pivot and adapt and overcome. Particularly this, I've seen, my tenure, I've seen a lot of ups and downs, but this by far, I mean, it's like we all had to start thinking outside the box, and we're doing it. And I believe that at Quantum5, perfect opportunity for Quantum5 or a company like ours because of technology. And I really believe technology is used to accelerate momentum, not actually create it. We've seen a lot of technology out there that can be ruinous. It's just, but there's a paradigm shift because of this. The rules and regulations that we operate by are out the window. And in 2 short years, look where we've come. Look how I remember, I didn't use Zoom. It was GoToMeeting prior to COVID, this pandemic. And it's like, 3/4 of the people wouldn't show. It's like, oh, I don't really, I can reschedule. Now it's like an in-person meeting, right? I mean, it's like, and you do a lot of that remotely too, don't you?
Oh, yes. Yes. So, I mean, I'm in my home office right now, and I facilitate a lot of my business conversations. A lot of the work that I do for Quantum5 is done right out of my house, which has been great. I found one of the other trade-offs that has been really nice about this, adaptation that we as an industry have seen. I think a lot of dealerships have realized the person doesn't have to be captive physically at the store to be successful for your business. We've seen a lot of people selling cars where they've adapted some of their sales approaches where they're doing stuff from their house, they're doing stuff from wherever they are. Service is a little different, but even with service, we're meeting customers where they are. I mean, so many people like Ed Roberts, for example,
phenomenal guy, man.
Yeah, and his amazing, the fleet that he has that go out to customers' homes to service their vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a lot of the way that we do business, not just in the car business, but in our lives, thinking DoorDash, thinking grocery delivery.
Yeah.
We've adapted so many different ways to save time. And I think the trade-off is we've become really much better workers and more efficient with the time that we're given, instead of just looking at the physical clock, from 9 to 5 and saying, yep, I checked the box. I was there for that period of time during the day. I think we've definitely seen a better culture shift where we've recognized how we can work differently, and it doesn't have to necessarily be.
Absolutely. I think he has like 13 mobile trucks now or something. Have you ever been to the facility? Not to get off top.
No, that is on my to-do list.
So it needs to be on it. Yeah. Cause it is an amazing experience. Anyway, that's,
I want to see it too. Very
I was supposed to actually go down to visit Ed. So it's funny. Ed was actually in March of 2020 at Scott Clark. He came to visit me and my BDC team with his BDC manager. And while he was at the store was when all of the airline stuff was shutting down.
Oh,
so
wow.
He had a flight out that afternoon. Yes, he was going, I don't know that this flight is going to happen. That he was starting to get a little nervous, and his BDC manager, this was her first time flying in an aircraft to come to Scott Clark, and she was doing that during all that going on. So I was actually scheduled to go see Ed, I think a few weeks after that.
Right?
Of course, that didn't manifest, but.
I didn't even really know. I was coming back from a dealership. I was a road warrior, as we just in January, right before the pandemic, our company was ready. We rolled out our first product. So I'm traveling to all these stores and stuff. And I call my wife, and we stay in touch on a regular basis. She's my everything. So I'm on the road and I give her a call, say, hey, you know what? No, she called me. She said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm traveling from Shreveport to Houston or someplace like. She said, you need to get home right now. I said, what are you talking about? And the pandemic thing, it's like, you need to get home right now. You need to get off the road. You don't need to be engaging with people. Come home. And I did.
Yeah. We all we all fear the worst, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. I was like,
to expect.
I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I've lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I've ever had it or not. I think I did, but I couldn't tell you conclusively if I did or I didn't, but it certainly has changed things. All right. So I have a question. It's not mine. I had a couple of mine, but this is one that Sherry had, which I thought was really great. So you say communication is the key skill to learn in order to teach people. What communication skills do you believe most people don't know about or don't have?
Oh, this is a fun one. So
that's Charity.
It really boils down to understanding someone's communication style and being able to adapt in a manner that meets the person where they're most comfortable. And so I think the biggest challenge that I see with people, and especially with teams, is that you have in automotive, we have a lot of really, really, let's just say, big personalities sometimes in departments.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be, just because of that type of communication, someone might misread someone else that's a little more introverted or a little more analytical as being aloof or withdrawn, or being, oh, that person doesn't get it. They're not with the team. Well, it actually had nothing to do with that. It was who they are as a person. Their personality is hardwired in a very different way. And so I think we have to realize that with our customers too. A lot of times salespeople, regardless if it's, service advisor, sales consultant, BDC, we oftentimes are more comfortable with the people that are like us. And so it's harder for us to communicate when someone is a little bit different. And so for me personally, I'm extroverted, and I might take someone that's introverted as being, oh, they're not interested in me, or they don't like me, or there's something there. Well, being able to take the skill to recognize, no, that's not, they don't have anything against Sarah. They don't have anything against who I am. They're processing information. They're introverted. They're thinking about what I'm saying. They're processing it in a little bit of a different way. And being able to respect that person for who they are, and then even adapt how I'm communicating with them to make them more comfortable.
Absolutely.
And so for Quantum5, we teach social styles, which we have, 4 key social styles that our customers are. And with those social styles, I think the biggest thing that we have to enable our teams with is recognizing that, we predominantly might fall into one social style, and we do a great job of communicating with that one type of customer. Mm-hmm. But that means that we're missing the opportunity in 3 out of 4 of the other customers that we're talking to.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to have that skill in communication to meet the person where they're comfortable, and then get outside of our comfort zone, because sometimes that's challenging. You're not hardwired to communicate in that certain methodology or that way. You might not prefer text. You might want to pick up the phone and call somebody, or you might be really slow at typing, and so you hesitate to type out an email. But someone that's an analytical personality, they might want that kind of communication first before they proceed to having a verbal conversation or dialogue.
Yeah, it's important.
Just being able to have the skills to adapt, that's really where the rubber meets the road.
Meeting the customer. So David Blackburn and I were talking when I was up there, I think it was about a month and a half ago. And we were sharing back and forth before I even started recording. I told him about experience I had, because when I was selling cars, I used to work the service drive. I enjoyed it. I would get there, at 7:30 before the sales department, and I just loved it. I learned a very valuable skill back then that's applicable today, and I like to refer to it as the 6 most powerful words in English vocabulary. So he had this heat case come in due to lack of communication, right? This lady and man come in, and it is a full-blown heat case. He listened to understand, not to respond. He was listening to the customer. Their tone went down just a little bit, but they started out. I mean, I was scared. I wouldn't have known how to handle it. when he noticed the tone change, because he was watching, the eye contact was there, and it was obvious that he was acknowledging. They were very, very frustrated. And then when that pause happened, he said, "I apologize. Will you forgive me?" And he shut up, and everything changed. Went from left brain to right brain. Everything changed. They apologized because it wasn't even directly at this person. And David just loved the heck out of that thing. I just like, and you can use it in just about any endeavor, but it has to be genuine. Just like all the communication skills that you're talking about, it has to be genuine. They got to like you. They got to trust you. They got to believe you before they buy in to whatever it is you're doing. But boy, I think people want to be led. They want accountability. And I think they've approached them wrong, because the analytical or an extrovert versus introvert and the style of communication. But it's amazing watching people and how they learn and how they excel. And that's what you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we take it even into different scenarios. So, we talked about the example of tire sales. Maybe somebody's missing, okay, hey, I had 5 opportunities at tire sales and I missed every single one. I don't know what's going on. Let's unpack, let's role play, let's talk through what happened. Sometimes it might just be as simple as that. We weren't communicating, or the person wasn't communicating the methodology that customer was, and they missed some key indicators from the first conversations or from that first walk around, that this person, their communication style was slightly different than the service advisors. And so even with all of our learning, we frame all of it around those different social styles. So, the tire sale example, we'll have a scenario and a journey that's how tire sales pertaining to somebody that's an amiable, or tire sales compared to somebody that's an expressive or an analytical or a driver. And we have content that adapts to those different social styles. And it also challenges the learner to engage in content in those journeys so they can learn, well, wait a minute, this person did this kind of behavior first. I can probably peg down their 1 or 2 of these social styles. I'm like 50-50 on which one it might be.
That's amazing.
And then they can ask additional questions and then based on how the customer is responding, now they can pin that down even further. And then they can really tailor that experience to the customer in a way that the customer is most comfortable.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, very detailed. You really get into the nitty gritty.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm envisioning scripts, but different versions of those scripts depending on the customer type that you're dealing with. Very detailed.
Well, it's going to go beyond scripts. So scripts are useful, I think, in the initial period, right? When you're very new to a skill and you're just learning, okay, like how do I kind of adapt? It's good to have a template. But the reality is, a lot of times with scripts,
that doesn't work, does it?
Well, what happens
after a while?
Yes, you get comfortable with that one methodology that might broad brushstroke work for 75% of the time, but it's that other 25% that goes, this isn't authentic. Right. Then my guard goes up. I start feeling a little hesitant because, okay, I've heard the same thing now, the exact same way from multiple people. Like I get training and I understand that
I'm out, I'm done.
Your dealership definitely values training because everyone's saying the same thing.
Sure.
But now I'm a little worried because I feel like you're guiding me towards a specific outcome versus meeting me as a consumer where I am. So it really, it is a combination of, and we don't call them scripts, but we call kind of templates. We'll give some great best practices. Like here's how a person would communicate.
Sure.
Like your best in class examples, depending on the social style, it might vary slightly with the presentation. The meat of it's the same, but how you go about it might be slightly different. And so, from a skill perspective, we talked about that. It's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. Russell, I think you talked about this a minute ago, but some people, they come in and they seem to naturally have that ability to adapt to people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just might be more in tune with being able to identify and meet somebody where they are. But that's a learnable skill.
It is. Whether you're introvert or extrovert.
Yes.
It's a learnable skill. Okay.
That gives me a lot to think about, Sarah. Like, That gives me a lot to think about.
Yeah, maybe we hire her to come into our company.
Right. I know. I'm like, I need to look up the different personality types and, out of my curiosity. Well, if you, excuse me, if you'd like, we could hop over to some fun questions.
Sure.
Kind of,
Oh,
less deep dive into, your.
I didn't even realize we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah. Well, these are fun, quick. They go pretty quick, and then we'll have a little bit more time afterward to
Sure.
cover.
Now you don't have to answer them if you don't want to,
That's what I'm
but we hope you do. They're fun.
All right. If you could know the answer to any question, what question would you choose?
Ooh, gosh. I have to think about that. I guess the one that kind of pops, and again, maybe it's a little bit more spiritual faith based.
I love it. We love it.
You had to ask the question, what happens after this?
That would be the one that I would choose.
That would be the question that I would just let's shake it all out, right?
Yeah. Something happens. We just don't know exactly what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pull
absolutely.
back the curtain. I would want to know all of the past as well. So all the past.
Oh, that's good too.
Mm-hmm.
What is the worst job you've ever had?
Oh man. So I took a job in college that was a really, really short stint. But the absolute worst was actually being an assistant to a wedding planner.
Oh my.
Wow.
And it was, and I will just say it really had to do with the individual more than the wedding planning business at large. It was an opportunity that, I was looking for different types of work. But I happened to get into that one because I've always valued customer service. I've always loved being a connector and a helper. So I was like, wow, that might put some of my creative brain to use, helping outside the box in wedding planning. My first two ones that I was assisting this wedding planner with, they were just completely off the wall weddings. Like, for example, one of the ones, the groom wanted to get married in the Clemson Tiger mascot costume. So that was like square one. You won't see my face. I'm going to be wearing the full blown mascot costume at the altar.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, okay, some people, that's fine. I get it. But then it was the other layered pieces on top of it from a logistics and planning that I was like, this is just not for me. And then what it was the level of expectation that people were having at the time for their weddings, but then not having the budget that they wanted to envision to spend it. So they would go, I want all this magical Disney princess type experience. Oh my gosh, but wait, you're talking about flowers are going to be a few $1,000s to pull that off. Well, can't you just do it for like significantly cheaper? Like, we only got a couple $100. And I'm like, that's not even reality. Like,
No.
So yeah, that was the job that
I don't know. I can see where that wouldn't be you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Your last one is your biggest irrational fear.
Oh man. Okay. So this is really strange. But I've always had this like weird fear that that I would get buried alive. And I don't know, like, part of it I think comes from, I had an MRI in college. I tore my labrum in my shoulder. I dislocated my shoulder completely. I didn't know that I had done it. And that's always been a fear of mine. I don't know, like, what movie or something I saw where I was a kid and I was like, being buried alive is absolutely the most terrifying thing that could ever happen. But that was like a completely irrational fear for me. And I remember being in college, I had an MRI of my shoulder and they put me in it. And I'm sitting in there just, like, you have to hold still. Here's the little plunger in case, something happens. And for some reason, I don't know what happened in my brain, but I looked down the length of my body and I realized I couldn't see the room and I blacked out. And I don't remember anything after that until I woke up and I was blindfolded in a straitjacket. And the doctor was like, oh, you're awake now. Let me tell you what happened. And I learned in that moment that I am incredibly claustrophobic.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say.
that was what prompted that fear. But yeah, the claustrophobia, I apparently, and I don't have no memory of it again. I went into fight or flight mode. I jumped over, I came out of the MRI machine. They couldn't catch me because I crawled out. Then when they realized I was coming out, they tried to stop me. I jumped over a full grown guy.
My gosh.
And yeah, ran to a door, proceeded to like run out into the hospital, tried to escape, tried to go through a window and some other things. I have no memory of doing this. I was apparently like tackled, they sedated me, and then they put me in like a straitjacket and then did the MRI while I was unconscious.
So let me guess, you probably got a full-size Suburban. You don't drive small compact cars, right?
Well, it's interesting. So feeling on the road, like I have the space around me,
Right.
like I have to be able to get out if I can. But that being said, you cannot, if people start piling into an elevator with me,
Yeah.
I'm like, whoo, okay, nope, I'm getting out.
Yeah. I don't like that too. I don't know if I'd say I'm claustrophobic to some degree, but not like that. Mine is of having a car crash. That's I just, and I'm on the road all the time. I don't even want to go there. I don't even talk about it. So, Sarah, we have reached the end of our time. It has been amazing. We are honored and humbled to have Sarah Vantine on our show today. All of you, let me know. We got a final question. What's that final question, Charity?
Oh, it might be a little long-winded. Do you have a moment?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I've got
good.
time.
It's super. I'm gonna have to read it. Forgive me, because it's like I said, it's a little long-winded. But I wanted to compare and contrast your experience as an equestrian with your experience training. So, as an equestrian, what correlation do you see between horse training and training teams in the workplace? Is there a difference between churning out riders or employees by teaching the mechanics of a task and paying
Great
attention
question.
to goals and people? That was
Yeah.
the one I was looking forward to asking you.
Yeah, so let me unpack that. Really the parallels between equestrian training and automotive training, there's a lot of similarities. So I'll first start by saying, there's really two types of training in both fields. There's training with the intent to compete, and then there's training with the intent to elevate yourself and be competitive at whatever level it is that you are. And so in equestrian training, one of the things that I saw was there definitely are barns and trainers out there that don't focus on the rider. They don't focus on the horse. They focus on, how do I get this human being to get a 2,000-pound animal over a jump as quickly and efficiently as possible, where they can go win a show. And so as a rider, what you lose is you lose the ability to really be good at being a good rider for your horse. And you're using the horse more as an object to fulfill that competitive, the competitive side. And so I found myself in riding, I happened to go at one point with some riding lessons that started to get more focused on, okay, let's focus on competition. Let's focus on these. And I actually found that I hit kind of a plateau in my skill where I wasn't really progressing any further. And I was having a lot of miscommunication with the horse. And so I couldn't really put my finger on like exactly what was going on with it, but we were just kind of having like a stall. And so I looked around for some different methodologies and some different trainers, and I actually found the trainer that I'm with now. And what she teaches is the mentality of, you have to, as a rider, be a good rider for your horse. You have to have that relationship and synergy together. That's actually what makes a winner. That's actually somebody that in a competition, you have a competitive edge compared to the other riders, even if they have more skill. Because of that, found that trust foundation and relationship, and because you're riding from the perspective of, how do I become better for my horse? How do I become better as an overall rider, where I'm not having some of the miscommunication, or where I'm able to recognize that miscommunication and grow from it. We see the same thing in automotive. So there's a lot of great trainers that come into stores and they go,
Mhm.
hey, I've been super successful. I've sold all these cars. I've made all this money. You do everything that I do. You too can be like me. And what happens is you might have people.
I'm sorry. I'm so out. I mean, on somebody that would do that right away, it turns me off. But go ahead.
But am
Yeah.
I wrong though?
No, it happens all the time. It happens all the time.
There's a lot of that. And it's the same thing in equestrian. So there's people that are really, really talented trainers that they themselves were amazing riders and they were amazingly competitive. But they're selling the notion that I will teach you how to compete and win, but they don't elevate the actual person to get better in their own skills. They just assign them the same skill set, the very narrow scope. And so what happens a lot of time with that kind of learning in automotive is, hey, I'm following these steps to the sale. I'm using this close. I'm using this close, and I'm not getting results anymore. Well, it's probably because the methodology and that scripting doesn't apply necessarily to the situation today. And so it's the same thing in horseback riding. What happens with horses is I mean, they're a sentient being. They have their own brain in their head. And they might have a day where if you're following one method of riding, maybe they're having a different day. Something happened overnight. Maybe that, something goes on and they suddenly go, I'm not cool with this. This is not working for me. And then as a rider, you don't necessarily have the skills to be able to adapt to that change. And so in automotive, we have to be able to meet our customers where they are. And I think there's a lot of new digital transformation and different ways that customers want to do business with us. So we have to have the skills to adapt outside of that mentality of close them, close them, close them. We have to be able to say, no, build value, earn the business. And equestrian, same thing. So my horse now, I have a new horse. His name is Bo. I bought him in August. He's an off the track thoroughbred. And the intention with him is we do want to compete. We want to get to that point, but foundationally, we have to get on the same page. He has to learn me. I have to learn him. We have to grow together to get to that point.
Boom. Listen,
Wow.
that is 2 times that I can recall specifically where I was invited. The short story is for equine therapy.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I learned a lot about communication and a lot about horses, not even, minutia of what but it was a tremendous experience of building a relationship and how to maneuver and draw them in. And it was, well, they pick up on stuff. They know, they sense things. That was my take. I could be wrong, but it was a tremendous experience about trust and building relationships and meeting somebody where they're at and how to get them to, it was I got goosebumps just talking about it. It was phenomenal.
There's a lot that and that's really the line of thinking that I've been so passionate about with my equestrian journey, is that horses really are kind of a mirror to us. So whatever you bring to the horse is going to reflect that back at you. And so it's actually, and that's honestly a lot of the training, and it's helped me tremendously in not only Quantum5, but in my personal life, because sometimes I might approach my ride and I come into the barn and I've got a lot on my mind and I'm starting to have like stress, or I'm starting to feel like, I've got to work on this later. I've got this going on. My kids are doing this. I've got to be here on time. I've got to go to the grocery store, blah, blah, blah.
And Bo's wondering what the heck is Sarah doing?
Yeah, exactly, because my brain is going all over the place, and you send signals that way, and he's picking up on it. So he goes, okay, but you're obviously distracted, so now I'm distracted.
Yeah.
And so it's really challenged me to be present and take inventory of my own thoughts and go, no, I have to be in the moment right now. I have to be feeling what he's doing as a horse. Like when he's thinking, like we're looking at a fence and he goes, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. That looks a little sketchy. I have to pick up on that from him and go, in that moment go, no, it's okay. I'm here with you. Let's do this. We can go over it together. And he pick up on my cues saying, oh, she's cool with it. Therefore, I'm going to be okay.
And do you talk to him?
I do. Yes. So I very much am
I think that'd be perfectly normal myself, but you know,
a lot of people do. And you know, that's also talking about equine therapy. So that's something that I personally too, I see that horses really do enable people to work through complicated emotions and feelings that they may not be able to verbally communicate. So I've seen even at the barn, like there was a girl who she had a lot going on in her personal life. And, you know, I won't reveal some of the things that she was dealing with, but she's, you know, 12 years old. That's a very impressionable and hard time in a adolescent's life. And she told me, she actually came up to me and she goes, oh, are you Bo's mom? Are you Bo's owner? And I'm like, yes, that's me. And she goes, I just love him. I go inside his stall sometimes and I talk to him and he puts his head next to me and just listens.
Oh.
And so, I mean, like, it just touched my heart because I'm like, wow, you know, this is, you know, horses are that sometimes safe space where it's like, yeah, I'm here. And they reflect that back. They understand like, hey, you're working through something. I'll be here. And certain horses really just have that special gift to be able to bring that out of people.
That was such a great question, Charity.
I'm glad we went ahead and asked that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I learned a lot today, Sarah.
If your kids ever get to that point, my daughter actually was the one that got me back into riding. I don't know, she's got that old soul kind of thing too, but she was, you know, at the time when she was a kid, she always would gravitate towards horses, but she got to be about 4.5 and she kept going, Mommy, I want to ride. And I'm like, no, I understand, like horses are cool. And she's like, no, I want to ride. And just kept after me about it. And finally I was like, all right, let's see. You know, I miss riding myself. I was a rider before. I took a long time off, but let's do that. And so being able to share that with her and then watch her go through the same things, I'm like, it's just been empowering.
That is great. You spend a lot of time with the horse, Bo?
I fit it in all around my crazy schedule. So, you know, I'm sometimes there first thing in the morning. Sometimes I'm there, you know, in the evening. It just depends. But I try to get out and ride, you know, probably about 5 hours total every week. And just keep that consistency going. And there's a lot of time, you know, spent where, you know, I do talk to him. Sometimes we'll be doing something and I'm like, what are you doing? That's not okay. You know better than that. And vice versa. Going, you know, great job. That was exactly what I wanted to do. And good job. You got over it.
Well, that's, you know, that's part of what keeps you grounded and having time for that because it's important to you. That makes you a better mother, better leader, you know, all those things, I believe. I would think so. Am I wrong?
Oh, yeah. It definitely is one of the things that, you know, a lot of people have ways that they center themselves or, you know, meditation, get their mind right. Because you have to be so present in horseback riding and you have to be so aware of everything that you're carrying into your ride. I find that it really is something that it enables me to pour out my own cup to other people by having that time where I can spend kind of processing my own things.
Wow. That's great. That was, this was amazing. Charity, if you have another question like that, ask it. That was a phenomenal. That was great.
That was the one where I knew.
Okay. You had that one because we had a bunch.
With your love of training. So, yeah, I've learned a lot today, Sarah. And we both really appreciate you coming on. And we should have you again.
Yes,
I enjoyed it so much.
Would you be open to coming back some other time and visiting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, Charity, so always at the end here, this is Sarah's time. What would you like to say? If you have something to say in closing, how would someone get a hold of you and find out more about Quantum5 and what you do and what you bring to the table? Because you you opened up the door some really amazing things that are outside the box or purview of what traditional training's like. How would they get a hold of Sarah?
Yes. So easiest way, you can reach me at Sarah, SARAH at Quantum and then the number 5.ai. So Sarah at Quantum5.ai. Our website is the same. Quantum5.ai is our website. You can contact me that way as well. You can find me also on LinkedIn. Send a message there if that's more comfortable. But I would love to have conversations with dealers that are looking for that next level and that next gear for their people.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Vantine, like her, share her, reach out to her, find out all you can find out. She's really very accessible on social media or email, just like what she said. They're doing some really great stuff at Quantum5. Like the podcast, share it, love it, make comments, etc. We would love your feedback. Sarah Vantine, thank you once again. Quantum5. Appreciate you.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. We hope you're enjoying this episode of WTF. And for those of you that don't know, it stands for What the Fixed Ops. We come out with new episodes and shorts all the time. We launch them both on YouTube and LinkedIn and all your favorite podcasting networks. We could use your support today, so please take a moment, head out to the YouTube channel and subscribe. I'll post a link in the description below. Don't miss an episode or short. We'll see you again soon.